You're watching News at Prime, and we continue with our reaction to US President Donald Trump's threats to cut aid to South Africa over the Land Expropriation Act. The Democratic Alliance has this time around stood behind the law, saying while it still needs to be amended, it doesn't allow for arbitrary seizures. Meanwhile, ActionSA has described Trump's utterances as reckless. Let's speak now to Democratic Alliance spokesperson Willie Aucamp, and we're also joined by ActionSA leader Herman Mashaba. To both of you, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Mr. Aucamp, I'm going to start with you. How would you respond to a critic that says the Democratic Alliance is no different to AfriForum in this matter?
Well, Collier, I think it's firstly very important that we state to the viewers at home what's going on here. The President of the United States made this tweet because he was worried. He's got advice and he's worried about what's going on in South Africa with certain things that's been put into legislation. From the Democratic Alliance's side, we said from the beginning that we are opposed to the act in its current format, and that we will go to court to test the constitutionality of certain items or certain clauses in this act. I do not know what AfriForum has done in this regard, but I think any civic organization has got the right to speak out if they do not agree with something that the government is doing. And if AfriForum then speaks out on this, then it is their absolute right to do so. I think that they, in a certain sense, has definitely got reason to worry about what was done here. The Democratic Alliance made it clear from the beginning that we've asked the President to send this bill back to Parliament so that the clauses that there were constitutionality problems could be ironed out. The Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Dean McPherson, also obtained a legal opinion, which he provided to the President in order to advise the President, but the President chose to ignore that, and that is very unfortunate. Yes. This could have been sent back to the Parliament. Parliament could have amended those clauses that there are constitutionality problems with, and nobody would have worried about this. Unfortunately, the President chose not to do that, and we now have to make sure that we can show to the American government that South Africa is going to address this. I can assure you, colleague, that within the GNU, the Democratic Alliance is already addressing it, and we hope that we will get to a point where we can find each other on this point. Hopefully, the courts will give a judgment on the constitutionality of this, but we can also take amendments to Parliament to get this law changed.
Yeah. Let's bring into the conversation Mr. Mashaba. Mr. Mashaba, is it indeed your view that the AfriForum group is treasonous in its actions here? And if indeed it is your view, qualify that for us. Why do you hold that view?
Well, without any shadow of doubt whatsoever, and I'm actually quite concerned with the DA's standing on the fence on this very, very important the matter, including the U.S. government into domestic affairs of South Africa. I don't understand why should America be involved in our domestic matters. We've got challenges in this country dating back many years, including ANC's 30 years of messing up our country. So I don't really understand why should America be involved in domestic matters that all of us as South Africans, as we are aware, we are aware of and concerned about the position ANC is taking this country to. That's why some of us are in politics. However, we are not going to accept anyone unleashing fake news, going to lobby the U.S. government to punish our country when the very same people who are responsible for putting us into this mess, including, obviously, to mess with the ANC, conniving on this matter. That's why, for us as ActionSA, we take serious exception to this particular matter. Because, Goli, you know we live in this country. Have we seen widespread confiscation of any land? We, as South Africans, I'm not aware as a South African of human rights abuse of our white South Africans. This country is a country facing massive challenges of lawlessness, 80 people dying every day. And please look at the stats of the percentage of people being murdered in this country because of ANC misrule. But what they inherited in 1994, you cannot really effectively differentiate. But for the very same people, instead of standing for our country, they tell us, no, America is justified on the basis of fake news. They cannot give us of any evidence of widespread confiscation of anyone's land. I was totally a mayor of the city of Johannesburg for 3 years, and I'm sure you are aware of the number of properties are confiscated, took over using the current legislative framework, because the Constitution adopted in 1996 allows government to confiscate land or property if it is for public good and the owner is nowhere to be found. So yeah. I don't understand the excitement, including putting our whole country at risk, like what has happened the whole day. So you can imagine the President of the United States, actually, as I say, acting on the basis of fake news being spewed by AfriForum, and this is totally unacceptable. I think for us, some of us as South Africans, we don't take kindly to this.
Mr. Aucamp, do you agree that this threat is tantamount to bullying by President Trump of one government by the other?
Well, Polly, I think firstly it's very important to come back to the statements that Mr. Mashaba just made. AfriForum did not ask the US government to intervene with South Africa. They did not ask the US government to punish South Africans. They've asked the US government to act against the people that are putting this through. So I think that is very important. And again, we are living in a democracy where organizations such as AfriForum and various other organizations has got the freedom of speech that is protected by the Constitution to speak out. Now, I'm not here to cover for AfriForum. When you look at what has been done now by the United States President, it is clear that people are looking to South Africa. And the Democratic Alliance has said this over a long period of time. And I myself said it last week on your show there with Naledi, where I said that the world outside there are going to look to South Africa and they're going to ask themselves, are we going to up our economy and are we going to create jobs by what we are doing? And from the Democratic Alliance side, we are clearly of the opinion that by signing this act into law in its current format, it is not going to contribute to that. And the world out there are looking at us. President Donald Trump has got an advisor by the name of Elon Musk. He is from South Africa. So the way or the days that we think that South Africa will be under the radar when it comes to the US government is long gone. They will look at us and they will ask themselves whether it is beneficial for them to trade with us. Let's look for a start. If you look at the amount of tariffs that we are saving by AGOA, South Africa exported over 125 billion rands of products to the United States tariff-free since the inception of AGOA. And the agricultural exports to the United States grew with 16% per annum since the start of AGOA. So the United States are clearly helping South Africa a lot. And I think when the President of the United States speaks out like this, we must ask ourselves, what can we do to protect this trade that we've got with them? We do not get that from any other country in the world. The United States of America is giving that to us, and we must obviously look at that.
I'll ask you the question again, Willie Aucamp. The question is, do you believe that this is bullying by America of the South African government?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't believe that it is bullying by America. It is the American president telling South Africa that he is not satisfied with stuff that we are doing. The Democratic Alliance has said from the beginning that we are also not satisfied with the act in its current format. So if other people come out, whether it's the President of the United States or whether it's you, Collie, or whether it's me, and also speak out against what we believe are injustices or are things that are not lined up with our Constitution, that is his right. The fact of the matter is that we are doing trade with the United States. They are giving us a lot of money every year for PEPFAR and other grants that we receive from them. And we must listen to them. There must be mutual respect. That's absolutely important. We cannot do trade with any country in the world if they don't respect us and respect our constitution.
Right.
And that is very important, that we show that President Trump must know that there are avenues that we as the DA in this government of national unity will still take to test the constitutionality of this act.
The reason I ask you this question repeatedly, I'll go to Mr. Mashaba in a moment, is premised on the following. And that is that the Democratic Alliance, just ahead of the elections last year, you said that the United States of America, the government, must come and observe our elections. This bill, your disquiet is well documented around it, and yet it has been in the workings for the last 10 years. And so here it is now, it's become a law. You are in government. Is it not incumbent upon you to say straight out that this is bullying or an attempted bullying, at least by America?
Collier, there's a fine line between bullying and persuading somebody to do what you believe in. Firstly, when we asked the United States of America to come and oversee our elections, it was with good concerns that we've had. And having more and more observers in an election can only do good. So it's not a matter of we ask them to interfere. We ask them to come and oversee our election process. We do it in a lot of African countries where we've got a presence from South Africa's side. But what one person deems as being bullying, another person can see as persuading. So the fact of the matter remains, Collie, is that whether people deem it to be bullying or persuasion, the fact of the matter is that we are doing trade with the United States. We get a lot of money from the United States in the form of grants. And from South Africa's side, we need to do everything in our power not to damage our international relations with them. The utterances made today by Minister Gwede Mantashe at the mining Indaba's opening in Cape Town was uncalled for. To come now and to try and threaten the United States to say, well, if you're going to go take trade away from us, we'll not support you when it comes to the supplying of minerals. It is not a tit-for-tat thing. I think we need adults in the room. I think we need to iron out our diplomatic issues that might be there so that we can work to the benefit of every single South African. If we are going to lose AGOA and if the United States are going to persist to not give the grants that we desperately need, South Africans are going to suffer. And to try and play a tit-for-tat game here is not going to work.
Mr. Mashaba, do you believe that, as Willie Aucamp puts it, we need an adult in the room? Do you believe that America's actions are those of an adult?
It's in fact a deep insult to me and I guess to majority of South Africans to listen to Mr. Aucamp talk about, firstly, about living in a constitutional democracy where we have the right of speech. Fortunately, I've spent more than half of my life where I could not defend my country openly. Today, I'm enjoying that right and I'm exercising that right where Mr. Aucamp is not going to put me under whatever section. So we have the right as well. But at the same time, it's actually quite disappointing for him being a part of this government of national unity to not defend our country and allow bullying orchestrated by people with no interest or people trying to protect and defend the evil of our past. I think the question of land distribution, it's a very emotional issue in this country and we must confront it. But we must do it in a manner that we are not going to allow anyone to bully us, to tell us if we don't do it, then they are going to withdraw their funds. And also to blame Gwede Mantashe, who's not my favorite politician. I think he has got a right to really defend himself. South Africa is not going to sit back and allow anybody to really bully us because we concerned about how strong the person is. It doesn't work like that. And as adults, let's sit around the table. If we are patriots, we love this country. Let us not actually promote fear-mongering. And that's something that DA has been really very good at. Unleashing for fear amongst our South Africans, dividing us along racial lines on the basis of fear-mongering. And that's something that, honestly, some of us don't take handily to this. We appreciate the role that America plays in the world. Without any doubt, we appreciate them. But please don't bully us. And on the basis also on fake news. The thing is, Dolly, if there was substance to this threat by the America, one can understand. Here, we talk about, we're asking the Americans, Mr. Aucamp, let him tell me what President Trump said. Is there widespread confiscation of anyone's land? Is there any human rights abuses of our white counterparts? Mr. Aucamp, you've got to ask yourself this question in your DA and your Afri forums, because I think what you are doing to our country, unfortunately, some of us are not going to keep quiet about it.
Gentlemen, very quickly to each of you, I'm going to give you less than a minute. Willie Aucamp, how do you improve relations with an American government and its president who, for lack of a better word, do not really care much about scrutinizing the content, and they will simply go on, as Mr. Mashaba puts it, on fake news? How do you improve relations with that kind of a government?
Ollie, I think it's very important, as I said, that we must speak to each other. There's diplomatic relations. We've got an ambassador there. They've got an ambassador here. We've got a minister of trade and industry. We've got a minister of public works. We've got a minister of agriculture that can speak to their counterparts in the United States and explain to them what we are trying to do, but also explain to them that from certain members of this GNU, we are trying to prevent this act from reaching its full fruition as was proposed here. We must remember, Collie, that the ANC tried to make changes to the Constitution, Section 25 specifically thereof, and they were not successful. Unfortunately, there are people within the ANC that are trying to use this act now to show the voters out there that they are going to expropriate land without compensation. We've got to sit down. We've got to mend any trade relations that there are. We've got to mend our diplomatic relations, and we've got to do that with respect from both sides. I just want to correct Mr. Mashaba on one thing. The Democratic Alliance is not doing anything along racial lines. Mr. Mashaba, that I can assure you. We are not fear-mongering anybody along racial lines. So please do not accuse the Democratic Alliance of doing so. It is just simply not true. Scully, we've got to work to increase the respect and the cooperation between us and America, because I can promise you the only people that will suffer the biggest are the poorest of the poor in South Africa, whom the Democratic Alliance are fighting for day and night to increase the quality of their lives.
Mr. Mashaba, it's your turn, sir. Talk to us about how we improve relations with America at this stage.
I think United States needs to respect that South Africa is a sovereign state. Yes, are we perfect? America is not perfect. South Africa is not perfect. If there are issues that they need to engage us, more especially the president needs to surround himself with sound advice so that whenever decisions that he takes decisions not really based on fake news that the AfriForum is actually spewing out there, actually really doing damage to our country as if we are reckless people. Unfortunately, I think the Donald Trump's really remarks were reckless and called for unnecessary. And I think for the DA to say this is not a threat, it is really for me unfortunate. And I'd really like to appeal to the president of our country, Cyril Ramaphosa, and the ANC, after messing our country for the last 30 years. But please be patriots. Put South Africa first in your decision if ever we've got to take the consequences, rather than take such consequences than actually be blackmailed. We're not young kids, we adults, and let's sit around the table and discuss our problems, but not through force and coercion and threats.
Herman Mashaba, leader of the ActionSA party, thank you very much for your time. Willie, Aucamp, the spokesperson, national spokesperson of the Democratic Alliance, thank you as well for your contribution to this discussion. Still to come on News.